3 days before the Islamabad round, Tehran says talks won't even start if the threats keep coming. If you're just joining, Craig and Lindsay Foreman are a British couple who were traveling through Iran by motorbike. They were arrested and sentenced to 10 years on espionage charges they deny. They're being held in Evin prison, and their prolonged hunger strike has now drawn warnings from UN human rights experts, with family and friends increasingly alarmed.
This is Iran War Daily. Today, a public ultimatum from Arachi, 2 Brits starving in Evin, and a July 11 clock that won't stop for either. Sarah, start with the ultimatum. If Craig and Lindsay Foreman detention matters to you, hit follow. We'll be back on it soon.
This one's from Iran International.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arachi said on Tuesday that negotiations with the United States on a final deal would not begin if threats against Iran continued. Arachi said in a post on X that Part 13 of the Tehran-Washington Memorandum of Understanding was clear, adding that negotiations on final deal will not commence if threats continue.
Arachi put it on X Tuesday. No final deal talks if the threats keep coming. He's pointing straight to Part 13 of the June 18 MOU and telling Washington to, quote, honor your signature.
And note the timing. His statements dated July 7th, 3 days before the Islamabad technical round on the 11th. Tehran has now put a stop condition in writing, not just in a speech.
So now the sequencing gets ugly. Trump's July 6th finish the job language is exactly the threat Iran's citing. If Washington softens it just to get people in the room Friday, does Tehran read that as a green light on the Hormuz fee regime before the MOU's reopening clause ever gets enforced?
Let's do the arithmetic that actually matters. The MOU's 60-day clock started June 18th. We're at day 20. If final talks can't even open under threat, the runway to a deal is burning while the two sides argue about whether they're allowed to argue.
And Arachi's flex is the funeral turnout. Millions honoring Khamenei, so the public and the armed forces supposedly don't flinch at pressure. That's the leverage he's bringing to a room he says might not convene.
From The Independent.
Fears are escalating for their well-being as they have been on hunger strike for 55 and 46 days respectively, surviving only on water with some milk and honey, leading to grave concerns about irreversible health complications. UN human rights experts have demanded their immediate release, characterizing their detention as state hostage-taking and their prolonged hunger strike as having reached the stage of a medical emergency.
Update on the Foremans. The Independent reports Craig has gone 55 days without food. Lindsay, 46, surviving on water with some milk and honey. UN human rights experts are now calling it a medical emergency and characterizing the detention as state hostage-taking.
And phone contact got cut off back in May. So the family can't even talk to them while their son's out here warning about organ damage.
Here's what sits wrong for me. Arachi, the man setting the nuclear preconditions we just talked about, is also the face of the government running Evin. Same authority, 2 very different clocks.
Right, and neither clock is moving in the foreman's favor. If July 11th is technical level plumbing on the nuclear file, where exactly do 2 starving Brits fit in? The MOU has 0 hostage language. 0.
And the Foreign Office keeps denying any prisoner exchange talk involving an Iranian held in Britain, a denial the family calls baffling.
Baffling's generous. Their health timeline is moving faster now than any diplomatic calendar London's got.
If you've got feedback on today's briefing, a story idea we should follow, or a correction, send us a note at iranworddaily@lanternpodcasts.com. We read what comes in, and it helps make the show stronger. If you want to dig deeper, we've put links to every story from today's briefing in the show notes. Follow up on anything you're still thinking about. That's Iran War Daily for Wednesday, July 8th. This is a Lantern podcast.